So many points of me. Let's start. I told you I don't summarize other people's books. The best spot to start is if you would just give esteemed audience, what do we need to know about Many Points of Me?
So Many Points of Me tells the story of Georgia, who's an 11-year-old girl in New York City, turning 12, whose father was a famous artist who died about almost 2 years before the book begins, and she is still figuring out who she is after this very sad loss, and also what it means to have a father who people kind of still talk about in the present tense and feel like they have a relationship with because they know his art and love his art. And then also her own figuring out who she is as an artist. She kind of wants to be an artist too, and her best friend Theo, who lives in her building, they do art together, and sort of feeling like, where is that passion for her now? And her mother is putting on an exhibit at the Metropolitan Museum of Art about her dad's work, and in the process of that, Georgia finds a sketch that she believes might be for a painting of her that he never got to finish. And she sets out to prove that it is what she thinks it is, because it's sort of a way for her to sort of reclaim her connection with her dad.
It's wonderful story, very moving, and I love that it works out that she has to do a self-portrait for a contest that is wonderful, because that's just the thing that she needs to rediscover herself and put herself back together. So with this, who would be the ideal reader for this story? Who are you most hoping is going to reach?
Oh, I don't know if there's an ideal reader. I think, it's maybe the kind of book. Well, I don't know if it's the kind of book I would have wanted to read. I loved fantasy when I was a kid. So I did read realistic, contemporary stories too, but I would have chosen fantasy any time.
Does that mean we might look forward to a fantasy book by you at some point?
I would have loved to write fantasy, but I don't know if I actually just tried to start writing one in the last month, and I sort of got 3 chapters in, and I realized that the name of the character had already been used in another book recently. It wasn't even original. So I don't know. I don't know if it's for me, but I wish I could write it. So I actually really, I think I'll say this in some of my interviews that I've done on blogs, that I sort of set out to write an art mystery. And it's, I think I needed to find the heart of it, because just writing a surface mystery didn't have enough heart. And so I think in discovering the heart, it turned into this more emotional story of grief and about personal connection and relationships and self-discovery. But that's not what I set out to write. I think that's maybe just my natural wheelhouse as a writer, is to explore these emotions and feelings. So it's an interesting thing, sort of figuring out, what to write and what the story is that you want to tell and all that.
Well, I'm fascinated as a avowed pantser. When you sit down to write a mystery, I assume if nothing else, you have to know who done it to get going, or know that you just start to sit down and just go for it.
That's the problem, is, as I've said many times in this interview, I don't research and I don't plan and I don't plot, and I don't know how to apply my logical brain to story, at least not in the beginning. So therefore, no, I was not the mystery aspect. There is a slight mystery aspect in here, but it's definitely not the main thing. And you can see, I think, from my mystery plot that I'm not necessarily cut out to be a mystery writer, but in terms of a genre sense. But I think all books are mysteries in a sense, and I think that the best books end up having a sense of wanting to find out what happens. There's something that you need to keep turning the pages to the end to know and to understand and to feel. And I don't know if I achieve it here, but I think that the books that I love to read, I feel compelled to keep reading because I want to know something, and not necessarily a mystery in the sense of, the genre of mystery, but just there's something that needs to be discovered or uncovered or revealed or wrapped up, or there's got to be something that keeps you turning the pages. To me, that's the main thing with books, is something that makes you want to keep turning the pages. So my ideal reader, I guess, I don't know what the reading experience is like for a reader of this, because I have no sense of distance or objectivity, but I would hope that if I heard that a kid wanted to keep turning the pages of this book and get to the end, and they really did, that would be the most satisfying result to me. The worst feeling is when you don't want to continue reading a book and you're bored by it. And I hope that not the case with my book, but I don't know.
At this moment in time, have you heard back from any young readers, or am I talking to you on just the verge of that feedback on its way?
I know. I mean, I would love to hear from young readers. I've heard more feedback from adults, and it's hard to know. But you know, my own daughter is a tough critic. She also really loves fantasy, and you know, so she did the first time she read it. She was sweet, and she was like, "Oh, she said it was addictive," and that was her way of like saying she wanted to know what happened. But since then, she's become a little coy with me about it. You know, that it's like, well, Georgia's so depressing and sad and boring, and I'm like, okay. So we'll see if I start to hear from young readers. I would love that, but you know, we'll see what their reactions will be. I hope they'll be genuine.
I don't know about boring. I think you're gonna hear much different feedback going forward. You have said elsewhere that the three of the big inspiration touch points for the book are from the mixed up files of Mrs. Basilia Frankweller, Masterpiece, and Under the Egg. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, all books that are related to the Met somehow. That was really important to me because of my connection with the Met as a volunteer there, and I'd started working there in the bookstore originally after I finished my master's degree while I was looking for jobs in publishing. So I really felt like it's such a special place, and I love these books that sort of bring in art in some way, and especially a place like the Met, which I just think is a fascinating institution and place to spend time, especially behind the scenes. So originally I had sort of like a caper scene in here where she's like breaking in to try to get her art submission back and ends up like running through the back corridors and hallways, and that didn't really fit in the book in the end, but I sort of like the idea of, you know, having access to these places in a behind the scenes kind of way.
So while you were there, were you constantly kind of casing the place, but for fiction purposes? Like eventually, I'm going to write a caper here, so I got to make mental notes about.
A little bit, maybe, yeah. And then not as consciously as I could have, perhaps. It definitely, you know, those moments where I'd be in the Met, you know, before it opened or on the days it used to be closed to the public on Mondays, and so when I got to be in there on those days. Like that was just the feeling. I mean, I don't necessarily capture it directly in the book, but that was kind of something that was very inspiring to me, for sure.
This art contest that Theo and Georgia enroll in for a portrait, is that a real thing? Are you pulling that from an actual thing that happens there at the Met?
Yeah, there's a PS Art. It's for New York City Public Schools. It's not quite the way that I describe it in the book. It's not the exact thing. It's called PS Art. It's not, I think I call it NYC Art. So I didn't want to copy it, you know, the real thing, but I made up my own sort of version based on it. But they do, I think it's from kindergarten through 12th grade, New York City Public Schools. And I think that the way it works is art teachers can submit, you know, to this contest, and art actually does get put on display in the Met in the spring. It's up there now. I think I posted on my Instagram or my website, you know, a picture of some self-portraits that are on display currently. So I think it's a pretty amazing thing. And then also Scholastic runs a contest, and they'd also have an exhibition of student artwork every year in the Met.
So I'm assuming, since I'm talking to you before the book is officially available to people who aren't special like me, I'm assuming that this countdown to when you're going to go to the bookstore you worked in at the Met and see a copy of Many Points of Me available, right? And they have to carry it. It's it's
funny. I have to. Because of the times we're in. You know, I would have been in there with a copy already, and I still do have to go in. I used to know the buyer and everything is when I worked there, but I don't know them so much now, but I hope they'll carry it. That would be pretty cool. I mean, they have sold other Met related books, like I think all the ones you've mentioned, you know, Mixed Up Files, Masterpiece, and Under the Egg. I think they've carried those all in the bookstore. So that would be pretty neat to have it sold there if they feel like it's enough of a link to the Met.
Well, that is my prediction and my hope for you, is that one day when quarantine is over and we're all spending more time in bookstores again, you'll be able to go in there and you'll see those 3 books available, and then right next to them, yours.
Yeah, no, that would be great. And of course, we were talking before about regrets, or I think, oh, I could have done more with the Met. I could have put more into it. You always think about there's more to be done. So, yeah.
We'll just add a T at the end, and then your issue and many points at Met, done.
Yes.
So, if anybody from Greenwillow is listening, for the reissue, you can have that idea for free.
Many thanks to the Met.